Machines collapsing like houses of cards, errors so severe they triggered massive accidents, total destruction, and billion-dollar losses. Today on TechZNX, we're going to show you 9 real incidents involving gigantic machines that ended in documented disasters. So shocking, you'll struggle to believe they actually happened. So get ready to witness moments where a bad decision, a technical glitch, or a simple oversight was enough to unleash total chaos. Let's begin. Top 1. The Ghost Train of the Desert. This isn't a movie scene or a drill. It really happened, and it's still remembered today as one of the most absurd and costly rail disasters of the century. It all began in Australia in the year 2018. A train operated by BHP, one of the largest mining companies on the planet, was hauling over 20,000 tons of iron ore across the Pilbara Desert, a remote and endless stretch of land. The train was massive, over 2 kilometers long, with 260 cars moving steadily along the rails. But midway through the journey, the unthinkable happened. The conductor stepped down to perform a routine inspection. Nothing out of the ordinary. What he didn't know was that the automatic brakes hadn't activated. Seconds later, the train started moving, alone. No conductor, no brakes, no control. What followed was chaos. The train accelerated for nearly an hour, covering more than 90 kilometers without stopping. It passed through stations and crossings at full speed, while the company's emergency systems failed to respond. Engineers monitored it in real time. The risk was enormous. A single obstacle or a miscalculated curve could have meant disaster. With no other options, the company made the unthinkable decision to derail the train on purpose. They diverted it to a secondary track with a physical brake system. The first car lifted from the impact, then dozens piled up like dominoes, leaving a mountain of twisted metal and scattered minerals. The result was catastrophic. Over $300 million in losses, destroyed equipment, and thousands of tons of cargo lost forever in the desert. The worst part? It could have all been avoided by activating a secondary lock system before stepping off the train. A tiny oversight that became one of the most viral and surreal railway disasters of modern times. Top 2. The crane that crushed Wall Street. A cloudy morning, downtown New York, and a crane over 170 meters tall that, in a matter of seconds, turns into a wild steel serpent in the middle of the city. February of the year 2016. In the heart of Manhattan's financial district, a colossal Liebherr LR 1300, one of the most powerful cranes of its kind, was being dismantled due to a high-wind weather alert. The takedown was already underway, with the team monitoring every move. But then, everything changed. A sudden gust, stronger than forecasted, hit the structure without warning, and before you could blink, the crane completely collapsed. The fall was captured by several security cameras, a terrifying sequence of hundreds of tons of steel crashing in slow motion onto the streets below. The structure crushed parked cars, a cab, building facades, and, tragically, a pedestrian. The official report was damning. Safety calculations hadn't been updated according to the latest wind forecasts. Even though storm warnings had been issued, the dismantling continued like nothing was wrong. The outcome? Over $15 million in damages, absolute chaos on one of the world's busiest avenues, and a harsh lesson for the entire industry. From that moment on, regulations for crane use and dismantling in U.S. urban zones changed forever. Because when a 100-meter machine comes crashing down, there's no room for mistakes or excuses. Top 3. Fire underground. Russia, 2014. A backhoe is working on what seems to be a normal day in a residential area of Chelyabinsk, a city known for its extreme climate, and from that day on, for one of the most explosive heavy machinery incidents ever recorded. The operator was maneuvering the machine over what should have been a cleared area. Everything looked fine. But when the bucket came down, it pierced a natural gas pipeline that wasn't marked on official plans. In seconds, gas started leaking under pressure. An invisible, lethal cloud spread through the air. The operator tried to retreat, but it was too late. The engine's spark was enough to ignite hell. The explosion was brutal. Security cameras captured the blast, and the scene looks like something out of a film. A massive fireball rising into the sky, The excavator launched into the air like a toy, and nearby buildings crumbling like cardboard. The shock wave shattered windows more than 200 meters away. Over a dozen people were injured, several homes were reduced to rubble, and the excavator ended up charred dozens of meters from the crater. The cause? Double negligence. The company didn't scan for underground utilities with updated tech, and the official blueprints didn't reflect the real infrastructure. No one double-checked. A chain of errors that led to one of the most extreme modern machinery accidents in Russia. Because when you're working on the surface, it's what's underneath that can destroy you. Top 4. The Killer Bridge. China, the year 2020. In the Guangdong province, one of many highway mega projects was underway, installing massive concrete blocks over elevated structures, each weighing more than 120 tons. The main machine? A mobile bridge crane, a horizontal lifting structure that moves along the columns and places each segment. But this time, nothing went right. The counterweights were misplaced, the supports were uneven, and the load system hadn't been calibrated for the actual block weight. Estimated figures were used, and that mistake was fatal. The entire platform collapsed like a trap. In seconds, a full excavator was dragged and crushed. Operator inside. No time to escape. A security camera caught the exact moment. The bridge gives way, the block falls like a meteor, and a thick cloud of dust and rubble engulfs the area. Then, silence. The official report was blunt. Failure across the board. Counterweights, balance, calibration. None of it verified. One life lost. Equipment destroyed. And the entire project had to be rebuilt from scratch. Because when you're handling 100-ton blocks, every millimeter matters. Top 5. The Domino Cranes. The year is 2013 in the Netherlands. A complex restoration project was underway over the Oude Rhine Canal, lifting and reinstalling the main sections of a historic drawbridge. To do it, 2 massive cranes were mounted on floating platforms designed to maneuver from the water. Everything was ready, except for one small detail: the wind. On the day of the operation, weather conditions became unstable. Gusts increased, but the team pressed on. As one section of the bridge was being lifted several meters into the air, one of the cranes began to sway dangerously. The weight was enormous, the floating base was already at its limit, and the wind acted like an unstoppable force. In a matter of seconds, both cranes collapsed at once. What followed was as brutal as it was surreal. The 2 steel towers toppled like toys, crushing houses, destroying shops, and leaving the entire city in shock. Footage from multiple angles went viral instantly. The cranes vanish into a cloud of dust and concrete as the bridge section breaks mid-air. Miraculously, there were no fatalities, but the structural damage was massive. Several homes became uninhabitable. Businesses shut down for months, and the bridge had to be rebuilt from scratch. The cause? As ridiculous as it was avoidable, they underestimated the wind. A technical report had already warned of the dangers of operating under such conditions. No one read it. No one took it seriously. An explosive mix of bad weather, poor planning, and overconfidence that led to millions in damages, destroyed machinery, and a stunned city. Top 6. The crack that sank a platform. North Sea, the year 1980. A storm rages in the middle of the ocean. Waves over 15 meters high, hurricane-force winds, and total darkness. Floating in this hostile environment was the Alexander L. Kieland, a massive semi-submersible platform weighing over 10,000 tons, used as housing for workers on a nearby oil rig. Everything seemed under control, until, without warning, the structure twisted violently and snapped in two. The steel giant began to tilt. Alarms blared. Doors slammed shut under pressure. In just a few minutes, 123 people died, many trapped inside, others thrown into the icy waters with no chance of rescue. The cause? A microscopic crack, barely visible in one of the critical support braces of the structure. A flaw invisible to the naked eye but deadly. Over months, the tiny fracture had silently expanded, weakening the frame. When the storm hit with full force, the pressure, wave motion, and metal fatigue finished the job. The weak point collapsed, dragging the entire platform down. The investigation was clear. No explosion, no sabotage, no direct human error. Just a technical detail that no one detected in time. And it cost more than 100 lives. This disaster marked a turning point in oil history. It was so shocking that it triggered global reforms in maritime safety standards, structural redesigns, and new inspection protocols still used today. But nothing erases what happened. A devastating lesson in the world of heavy machinery. It's not always the big failures, but the things that go unnoticed. Top 7. The ship that stopped the world. March of the year 2021. An image freezes the entire planet. A gigantic container ship, over 400 meters long, stuck diagonally in the Suez Canal, blocking passage entirely. This was the Ever Given, one of the largest ships on Earth, and in seconds, it went from gliding between continents to starring in the most expensive traffic jam in modern history. The accident happened during adverse weather conditions, crosswinds, low visibility, and shifting currents. But reports were clear. There was also excessive speed and an inexperienced crew trying to maneuver such a beast in tight quarters. The result? The ship lodged itself so deeply into both banks of the canal that it was completely immobilized. For nearly a full week, the global logistics chain froze. Hundreds of ships were stranded, thousands of shipments were canceled, and the economic losses exceeded $10 billion. All because no one slowed down in time, because no one acted with precision in the most critical corridor on the planet. Freeing it wasn't easy. Tugboats, dredgers, excavators, and a perfectly timed operation with the tides were needed. It was a minute-by-minute battle against time, international pressure, and the sheer weight of the vessel. Eventually, the Ever Given floated again, but the mark it left was permanent. A brutal reminder that a single, poorly directed machine can bring the entire world to a halt. Top 8. The wrong building explosion. Texas, the year 2014. Everything was ready for a controlled demolition. Charges set, perimeter secured, cameras rolling from every angle. The mission? Demolish an old industrial building. But something went horribly wrong. A mistake in building numbers led the team to blow up the wrong location. Instead of demolishing the intended structure, they brought down an adjacent building that was still in use. Yes, active, with equipment running, documents inside, and luckily, no one present at that moment. The footage shows the perfect collapse of a building that shouldn't have fallen, with the charges detonating exactly as planned but in the wrong spot. The company blamed outdated maps, claiming the numbering no longer matched. But the truth came out. The technician who triggered the charges hadn't confirmed with the field team before giving the final go. The result? Hundreds of thousands of dollars lost, millions in lawsuits, and the immediate shutdown of the responsible firm. All because of a chain of mistakes that could have been avoided with a simple radio confirmation. A perfectly executed demolition of the wrong building. Because sometimes it's not a storm, a collapsing crane, or a gas explosion. Sometimes all it takes is pushing a button without asking. Top 9. The ignored bridge collapse. The year is 2020 in São Paulo, Brazil. A freight train slowly crosses an aging metal bridge over 60 years old, pulling dozens of wagons filled with iron ore. But that crossing should never have happened. Engineers had already warned the structure couldn't handle such weight. The technical report was clear, but due to logistics, operational pressure, and urgency to keep materials flowing, the crossing was greenlit anyway. Then came the inevitable. Midway through, one of the bridge's supports gave way. The structure partially collapsed. Several wagons plunged into the void, twisting the rails like aluminum foil while the train still tried to advance. Unaware the ground was crumbling beneath it. Drone footage and nearby cameras captured it all. You see the convoy split in two, the wagons tipping in slow motion, iron twisted with steel and dust. Miraculously, no one was hurt, but the damage was enormous. The bridge was rendered unusable, the railway shut down for weeks, and the hit to cargo transport was in the millions. And the most absurd part? It was all foreseen. The document stating, "This bridge can't take it anymore," existed, signed, stamped, and totally ignored. Because once again, the rush to move tons of metal outweighed the warning of those who knew exactly what was coming. And there you have it. 9 brutal, real, and fully documented failures involving giant machines. Some cost millions, others lives, but all of them share something in common. They were human mistakes, avoidable, often absurd, and always devastating. Now tell us, Which of these disasters shocked you the most? Did you already know any of these cases? Leave your comment, subscribe to TechZNX, and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming deep dives into the most extreme stories of engineering and the most powerful machines on the planet.